everybody. It's Shop Talk with TnT. I'm Trent Nyhus, Farmers Insurance, the Nyhus Agency.
Tad Peterson, LakePlace.com, Brothers Realty.
And we are here today with the goat farmer himself, Dana Derricks. Dana, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
So, a little bit of history of Dana. He grew up in a small town in Wisconsin. He has been on the Forbes Entrepreneur magazine, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you've written 12 books. You've started, I don't know how many companies? Lots of companies. So we're just going to kind of get into it with Dana. You know, he's an entrepreneur, I think to the fullest. I think when he sees opportunities, he goes and strikes. I think that's kind of his big thing for him. So Dana, let's start with business number one.
Oh man. So I think it starts before that with if you can remember your childhood and how you fit into the system, and more so how you didn't fit into the system, that was me. So I thought differently than a lot of the other kids. I thought very differently than the teachers. And so when I was in third grade, I had a buddy that was good at art. He could draw cool pictures. I couldn't. So I thought, well, why don't I make some money? And so I'm like, hey, do you agree? Yeah, third grade. I'm like, hey Cody, do you mind if I sell your artwork to the kids on the playground and I'll sell them for 50 cents? I'll give you a quarter, I'll take a quarter, we're all good. And he's like, heck yeah. So pretty soon my pencil box was full of quarters, and Cody couldn't keep up with all the art sales I made for him. And shortly thereafter I get shut down by the teacher saying you can't sell stuff at school. And I'm like, okay, well, and looking back, I think they should have been high-fiving me and saying, wow, this is amazing. Like, you should, yeah. So that's like kind of the backstory. But my first real kind of business I started was, I grew up in a small town, Plum City, Wisconsin, and I grew up on a dairy farm. We had cattle and sheep and yeah, we didn't have goats crazily. So one thing like we didn't have. And I remember one summer I was like 12 years old, and I was we were baling hay, and for those that have done it, you know that the worst spot to be in is in the haymow stacking, right? Because why? For 2 days after you are in the haymow stacking, what are you blowing out of your nose?
Hey,
yeah, for like 2 days. It's like in your brain. You're like, huh, that's not good. So I'm like, okay, there's got to be a better way to make $10 an hour than stacking hay. So then I had an uncle who sold some stuff on eBay. I kind of asked him to teach me how. Pretty soon I was just taking crap from around the house, selling on eBay. And that escalated.
Artwork?
Oh yeah, whatever. I mean, that's your coffee mug's not safe around here. I'll sell that before the show's over. But then that escalated into selling, buying things from garage sales and stuff. And then I got into Craigslist. I was selling cars at like 15 and flipping cars and doing all this crazy stuff. So anyway, I've been kind of doing selling and doing business stuff since I was a little kid.
So kind of when I first met you, you had a clothing line that you launched, which were very popular to your friends and everybody else. So kind of talk about the Old Gefo.
Oh man. So in high school, I decided to launch a clothing line, and I don't know why, but I did. And so I sold a lot of t-shirts, and then I was kind of the go-to person in the community to get t-shirts done. So it's not, I not only had my own clothing line, but I also, like if the football team needed shirts or somebody needed shirts for an event, they'd go through me. And I'm like, it's not that you're like going through a 16-year-old here, like it's not that hard, but to everybody else I guess it was. So that kind of morphed into, I kept that going into college, and then in college it kind of started taking off even more. I would throw, you go out to party on a Saturday night, I would throw a dozen t-shirts over my shoulder, go out and party, and I would come home at the end of the night with $100 cash, because I would sell these shirts at these parties and people would wear them and they thought it was cool. So I kept that going for a while in college, and then kind of my sports career and that took over, and I kind of let it fizzle out, but I still have a few of those shirts in the old closet. So
I also have some of them old shirts, and I had a hat. I don't know where that went. I'm guessing
Well,
somebody stole it
I
from
doubt
me.
you'd want to wear it now as a dad.
Yeah.
to be honest. Yeah.
So the entrepreneurial spirit started really young with you. Not to be personal, but did that, when you said that, that affected, the teachers didn't like it, did that affect how your school career went? I mean, sometimes when you think that differently, maybe that didn't translate into, like you said, the teachers shouldn't have given you high fives, but instead they're reprimanded. I mean, did you have a tough time with school going through?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm a classic example of like underachieved academically on paper, but overachieved outside of it and other things.
That's kind of what I was getting at.
Right.
You put it way better than I did.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
and I don't like, this is kind of stereotyping, but there's a saying that C students hire A students. There is some truth to that.
Yeah.
There is some truth to that.
Yep.
So I'm of the mindset throughout all of school, I could have made a run for valedictorian. I'm a smart kid, but I did not want to put that effort in, to be honest. And that's
But you didn't put it into video games and breaking the law. You were putting it into something that was building a future for yourself.
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And getting my feet wet on things that I just didn't know what to do or how to do it, but I just knew I wanted to do that. So, and that wasn't part of the system, but that's how I got to where I am. So I wouldn't change that.
Yep. Cool. That's I'm a school board member, so I always think of that like the student like you like you mean like you say underachieve in school, but where are you if you're not putting your effort into your schoolwork, what are you putting it into? Is it something constructive? Because sometimes you don't want to stifle that's a good spirit to have. That's kind of the way our country was founded, by people thinking differently.
Sure.
So I admire that.
Thank you. And further, it went into college too. So Trent knows I started another business in college. It's called it was a spatting tape company. Which, if you don't know what spatting tape is, it's the stuff you wrap over top of your cleats. Mostly football players, soccer players, whatever. To protect your cleats and also your ankles, kind of gives support. So I figured out that, this is how it happened. Any company that I've launched at least, or most that do well, are born because there was a problem that the person that founded the company needed to solve for themselves, right? So my first company, selling on eBay, I had a problem. I was stacking hay bales in the hay mound. I didn't want to change it. So this company called Spatting Tape was founded because I was sick of paying so much money for rolls of Mueller spatting tape. There was only one option, right? Remember that?
Yep.
So, and not only that, you've used it. How is Mueller spatting tape?
It's gonna end up wrecking your cleats.
Yeah. So it does the opposite of what it's supposed to do. And then even worse is if you don't need the support, it's way too constrictive on your ankles, right? So I'm like, this stuff sucks. So then I put two and two together, and I'm like, okay, like, what do I have around the farm, or what did I, in my life, what did I use that I could maybe use as spatting tape that's better than this? And I'm like, geez, we used to wrap our cattle's feet when they were infected or what have you, after we hoof them, shave their hooves. We wrap it with this stuff, and it's like the perfect like stretchiness, and it protects them, and I'm like, shit. And it's called vet wrap, I believe.
Yeah.
So then I grabbed a roll from Fleet Farm and I tried it as spatting tape, and it was literally perfect. So this is back in high school. And so I'm like, holy crap. And not only that, in every way it was better. So it was like $1 a roll, and there were 10 different colors. Mueller came in only black, right?
Yep.
So then I started wrapping my cleats with it, and I just solved my own problem. And then pretty soon, and I had royal blue matched our uniforms, and I look good, feel good, play good, right? Dion, was that what it says? So all my other teammates were like, what is that stuff? Give us some. And then pretty soon the whole team was looking great. And
just don't want to go to Fleet Farm.
yeah, I definitely did not tell them where to get it. And so I would go to Fleet Farm, they'd give me $2 a roll, I'd make $1 per roll, and everybody was happy. And then it kind of escalated to the point where other teams were like knowing that I had it and asking me for it. So then it turned into a business, and then I ended up sourcing the spatting tape from the actual manufacturer out of Iowa. And it's funny because they wouldn't sell to me to use it on humans. They're like, nope, you can't do that. But then if I call back and I'm like, hey, I'm a wholesaler and I sell this stuff to vets, can I get 12 cases? They're like, yep, sure. so sometimes you gotta just do what you gotta do.
Yep.
And so anyway, that company turned in, I ran that in college too, and it was a nice, profitable company. We had worked with a lot of semi-pro teams, which you know all too well.
Yep.
They love that stuff.
Yep.
Gotta be flashy. So I remember I was in the dorms my freshman year of college, and I was running a full-blown company out of my dorm room. There were boxes. I was shipping that stuff out of my dorm room. My poor roommate, I had no idea, didn't know him, just randomly got paired with him. He was like having to walk around boxes and like.
I can imagine that.
Yeah.
Boxes of.
And then back to your point, pretty soon after that, the RA got involved and shut me down. They said you can't be running a commercial business out of a dorm room. And it's like crazy because I understand that there have to be rules and that is probably not an appropriate thing. But also, what a great, just like you on the school board, what a great time to identify a special opportunity that you could then even support as a university, right?
Yeah.
And then create something cool and special out of it and have a, donor for life. But instead they did kind of the opposite, and so that's kind of too often the way it goes, I think.
Yeah, so now somebody who's as successful as you are probably doesn't have a good opinion of the college they went to. It sounds like, no, you kind of shut me down.
I have honestly contemplated a lot of times just to see what they'd say, asking for a refund on my degree because I don't use it. I'm like, so.
Well, but maybe you were successful in spite of them, and maybe that was your education you got.
I think,
everybody's path's a little bit different, but
that's a very good point, and I think everyone should take that away from this because I think one thing I naturally do is when somebody doubts me, it just pushes me more toward doing it and proving them wrong. So I totally agree. Great point.
Yeah, everybody's motivated in different fashions, and sometimes spite is a good one.
Yeah.
So I think that the good thing that we always talk about on our show is we kind of always find people's lowest moments when they had to turn it around, and it was like the aha moment. The back was against the wall, and you had to fight your way out. I know that I know the story personally, just because we're good friends, and I think it's a really powerful story because even though you said you were, you started these businesses and you did all this stuff, you still had that low point where you had kind of no idea what was going to happen, what your next step was going to be. So I think the Taco Bell story is a really good one. Good one to hear.
All right, so leading up to my freshman year, I had all this stuff that I did, these companies I ran, and then I got into college. I was very focused on football, had a football scholarship. That's how we met, which I think we should get into as well.
Nope.
Oh, you don't want to talk the basement story?
Yeah, we're not talking any of them stories.
Okay. So, during my freshman year, I kind of had to make a choice, business or football, and I kind of chose football. And so I played, 2.5 years in college, and then I decided to retire. That was right when the documentary on concussions came out. It scared me. So I'm like, let's call it a day. And so getting into the end of my sophomore year, I had to kind of reinvent myself. I was in school for business, and I was learning absolutely nothing practical or tangible to run a business. So I'm thinking to myself, I'm taking statistics classes, economics classes. How is this helpful in any way to an entrepreneur? And it really, just being honest, it isn't. But at least for me, because I knew I wasn't going to go work for someone. So toward the end of my sophomore year, I was dead broke, and I had a night class, and it was one of those. I don't know about you. Well, I do know about you. I don't know about you, but I always took those big long classes that are only once a month, and you can just you hope to God that day it's a horrible snowstorm. So we had one of them, it was 4 hours long, and afterward I went to Taco Bell, desperate, hungry, and I made my order, and then it was $6 and something, and I swiped my card and it didn't go through, and I was like, oh shit, at this point I didn't really keep track because I just knew I didn't, it's stressful. You don't want to look at how much you don't have, right?
Yep.
And so I just walked out of there disappointed in myself, and I knew I needed to make a change at that moment. So the next morning, I got a credit card, and I went to Barnes & Noble, and I physically filled up a shopping cart with every single business book I could find, $500 worth, maxed the credit card out. I was just throwing books in the cart. And for the next 6 months, I read every book I could, and that totally changed my life. Everything about that absolutely is the reason I'm here today and having any success today. It's because I took that 6 months to just learn. Not from textbooks, not from my professors, no offense, that hadn't done this stuff or failed trying, but from people that had. And so after that, my junior year, I had made $96,000 my junior year in college as a full-time student, which I was really proud of. And then my senior year, I kind of doubled down on this. I did more of it, and while everyone else was kind of partying and doing crazy stuff, I was building my business. In my senior year, I did $336,000, which was more than every single person that worked for the university, including the president. So that's how quickly you can turn this around, by just simply unlocking what you have in front of you.
Wow.
Ted's processing.
Yeah, I am. So I like. What was your business that you started or picked back up after your football career in your junior year?
So, I think I was okay. One thing I would tell anybody is figure out what you are gifted with, a skill. You are gifted with a skill, and typically that skill looks like something that you don't really think you are gifted with, because it seems normal to you, but everyone else is like, holy crap, how'd you do that, right? So for me, it's writing. Like writing, I was just gifted with the ability to write. So the first book I read when I grabbed those books from Barnes & Noble was a crappy book on management that had nothing to do with what I was trying to do, so I got a chapter in and then I tossed it. The second book I read was a book by a guy named Dan Kennedy, and it talked about copywriting. Now, not the copyright, it's confusing, but copywriting in the sense of like trademarking and patents, that's not what we're talking about. Copywriting in the sense of the words that are typed to sell stuff. So the script you see someone read on a commercial, or the words that you see on a billboard, that's copywriting, the type we're talking about. So right then I realized, holy crap, I am a copywriter. I identify with this guy, Dan Kennedy, and I can make a hell of a lot of money doing it. So then I started copywriting, and I kind of cut my teeth on a site called Upwork. It's basically an online marketplace where you can build a profile as a contractor. Companies can hire you. I ended up doing really well on Upwork. I was one of the highest paid copywriters. And that's kind of how I got my career going, was through copywriting.
Oh, cool. So that got you through, I guess, pick it up where that was your junior year and your senior year in college. Mm-hmm. You were still going to class, still doing all this other stuff.
Minimally.
Yeah,
very minimally.
Not going to class.
Yeah.
And I remember, and sorry, this is like all these stories are coming to mind. I remember back to what we're talking about with the system. I'm a humble guy. I love humble people. You guys are humble people. I don't flash stuff. So when I did go to class, which first of all, you should be grateful, marketing professor, that you have a kid that is so successful, and he's still got enough respect to come to class. Yeah. Because his time is worth way more than yours.
Yeah. Yeah.
No offense. And so I remember I missed some classes, and then I met with him, and he was really pissed at me for some of the things I said, or excuse me, some of the things I didn't do. And I tried to explain to him, well, it's not like I'm not like hungover and partying and missing because of that. Like, I have this business and it's going really well. And he didn't want to hear any of that. And so I remember just shaking my head and thinking, just give me a D. Just like, let me get out of here. I just want this degree. And it's not even for me at this point. It's to make my parents happy.
Yep.
So another opportunity missed by that marketing professor to kind of dismiss me, and because I didn't do everything by his way, yet I got everything done that he asked, and for the reasons that I didn't do it his way. And it's just kind of, I guess, another example.
So it was a marketing professor teaching a marketing class with a student who was making six figures doing marketing.
Yes.
And you failed the class.
D.
He didn't give you the D.
Yes.
Well,
I took
Kudos
that-
to him.
Yeah, thank you. So, and it's funny because
At least he didn't hold you up for another semester.
yeah, exactly. Like at some point, you just gotta, and that's another thing too. Like, there's a lot of these entrepreneurs that are, like the Mark Zuckerbergs and those that they go to a year of college and then they, they don't finish. I think I don't celebrate that the way most people do, but I do think that there's something to be said about following through and doing things that are hard that you know that you're not going to directly benefit from, and just finishing what you committed to. So,
Yeah, I'm not going to put this in words correctly because that's not my. Maybe you put it in words better than I will. But there's almost two kinds of businessmen. There's the, and I'm not picking on teachers or businessmen at all here, but some people, they say the college education is well-rounded. You gather all these things, and you might go out and work for the Derricks Group.
Yeah.
But I mean, you have all those pieces. You're good at what you do. They taught you well. Or there's the person who has an idea or a problem, and this is the direction I want my business to go. I know how to get it there. I know there's a lot of pieces that I don't know how to do, but I'll either figure it out or I'll hire somebody else to do it. You know what I mean? So I mean, you're definitely the other one. And how do you teach one without pushing down the other?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a teacher like that. I'm just it's. I can visualize your frustration where it's like I'm kind of perfecting what you're teaching, but you're telling me I need to.
I should be teaching.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I want to.
This is what you need to look out the next time Dana Derricks walks into your classroom,
right?
Or Dana Derrick like people,
And that, I think, part of the problem is, and it's not. This isn't necessarily the system, but this is a personality problem. Some people are threatened by that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they shouldn't be. It should be, wow, let's celebrate what you're doing. Even though I couldn't personally do it, I'm happy for you because you are.
Yeah.
And I want to say too, I don't have anything against teachers or school at all. Like, there are teachers that absolutely changed my life, and there are so many good teachers out there. I think it's important to note that I went to school 15 years ago. It's very different now than it was then. And I graduated with 30 kids. So my school was not equipped to handle an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Well,
Right,
it's the
like-
biggest class in Plum City.
Yeah, and that
ever
was a
had.
big class.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and trust me, it wasn't a hotbed of entrepreneurs. So,
Yeah.
it's not like, so I don't want to take anything away from education or teachers. I think it's a very thankless job, and there's so many good teachers out there that are dealing with some crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Especially right now,
Absolutely.
that it's insane, and I admire the fact that they're able to do it at all.
I mean, especially at a public school like Plum City. I mean, you're dealing with a vast range of kids and mentalities. I mean, it's you don't get to pick and choose your students.
Right.
It's whoever walks in the door. You're required to educate them.
And the politics of a small town, plays into it as well. Because we had there were teachers. I'm not going to say that everyone was against me, but there were teachers that I did connect with, and they were very different too. And they were equally as sort of shunned by the other teachers as I was by So it's tough to see that too, because everyone should be kind of celebrated for their differences, whether it's politics or religion or race or whatever the thing is. Like, why can't we celebrate the fact that that person has a difference?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like, nope, you have to kind of morph and mold you into this because this is what's easy. And I think I can speak to, I volunteered with the Big Brothers Big Sisters for several years, and we had my 12-year-old little and there are teachers that he couldn't sit still in math class. And I think to myself, like, okay, I understand that you want him to sit still in your math class. However, if I, as a 30-year-old man, sat in your math class, I wouldn't be able to sit still because you are boring.
Mhm.
You have, it's like meet in the middle. Don't just shove pills down his throat because he can't sit still in your boring class.
Mhm.
Like, no offense, but try a little harder. Make it more interesting for him. You don't have to go out of your way to a kid that doesn't deserve it, but he wants to do well. He just thinks differently. He's entrepreneurial. He's just like me.
Yeah.
So those are things I think too that more conversations like this are just really helpful because other people, they don't know that. They just see it as him acting up, or he he doesn't respect me. But the reality is like you got to kind of meet in the middle, and you guys think differently. You're literally right, left brain. Like you're different.
Yeah.
So
I think that's part of the problem of the job market right now in America. I know there's another part of it, but I think another part of it is we're getting into more people that have that entrepreneurial spirit, that they don't want to work the traditional 9 to 5 anymore.
Well, and in some cases, it doesn't exist because it's been automated.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, that's always a unique portion of it. So after, the copywriting, everything's good. You look around your office, I see some pretty big, sweet looking trophies. And if you guys know me, I'm a trophy dude. I want them. That's what I strive for. I know it's weird, but that's what I like. So talk to me about the Clickfunnels trophies that you got. Or what Clickfunnels even is for some of our viewers that have no idea what Clickfunnels is.
So Clickfunnels is a software. It's kind of like a website builder, but it's a little bit more specific. So to give you guys a nice, easy analogy, so if you were to walk into, let's say, Dick's Sporting Goods, and you were to just look around at all the aisles, all the products, that's your website. It's got everything right there. You can go where you want, and it's just kind of a big overview. If you walk into Dick's Sporting Goods and you want to go right to the, let's say the sleeping bags, and you want to look at just the sleeping bag section, compare all the sleeping bags, that's what a funnel is. Okay, so ClickFunnels builds that. Does that make sense?
Well, I kind of have through my business, I kind of know what you're.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I should say, does that make sense, everybody?
Yeah.
By the way, if you guys aren't subscribed to this, what are you doing? Press the subscribe button. Comment below, please. Don't make these guys keep going out one below and having to do these freaking interviews, and then they come back and they're like, geez, we got like 200-300 views, but nobody subscribed. Stop it. Stop it. Press subscribe. Anyway, so a buddy of mine founded that company. They do $100 million. It's insane, huge company, amazing, and they reward their. So anybody that's a business owner, this is a great takeaway. They reward their users for having success. So on the wall back there, they look like when a record goes platinum, they sell I think $1 million. You get one of those plaques. They made a kind of replica of that. When you make $1 million in a funnel, they give you one of those. I've actually earned 4 or 5. I just have 3 on the wall. So that's where those came from. Also, I really invest a lot. This is the other thing people don't understand. Okay, my senior year in college, I didn't just buy books. I also bought thousands of dollars worth of coaching programs and courses and stuff. So I've spent over $250,000 on mentorship, coaching, masterminds, etc. One of those masterminds I was in was by the founder of ClickFunnels, Russell Brunson.
Go.
So I highly recommend anybody that wants to do more, just invest what you can afford, obviously, but also think about, like, it's not I can't afford this, it's how can I afford this. And so I have my first year out of college, by the way, just because somebody makes a certain amount of money, $336,000, doesn't mean they keep $336,000. So that's another thing to be said. But my first year out of college, I sent a one-way wire of $25,000 to Russell to join his mastermind, and I did not get an ROI on that at all until probably 6 months later, when I went out there and I actually met with that group. Mm-hmm. So the power is really in the people and the connections, and that's how I've been able to build my company to the point that I have, and always will. So the power is in the connections, and that's what the Dream and Heart is all about.
And I was just going to say that too, is just, two morons like us going and talking to people like you guys. I mean, successful people in a wide range of things, and you can measure success. I mean, you can measure it through money, through a number of things, but I think it's the biggest thing I like about us doing this. Is just and I hope people watching find value in that too. That you can read as many books as you want, but you've got to apply that. And having a conversation with people. Don't ever be afraid or nervous or scared to ask people questions. Trent calls you and says, "Hey, you want to do this?" 3 seconds, you say, "Absolutely." you're willing to sit here and tell everybody about your business because it's fun. It's you've done it. You don't necessarily care if other people do it. You like telling your story. And I learn, you learn.
Yeah.
It's kind of on how you accept the information. You tell me something, and okay, marketing professor, in one ear out the other, you're not doing what you're supposed to do, but I'll give you a D. Just listening, asking questions, talking is valuable.
Definitely. And you never know where the relationship will go.
Yep.
So, like, a lot of times when you go into something, you expect something out of it, and what you actually get is very different, but a lot of times it's a lot better, right?
So let's talk about Dream 100. I don't think most of our viewers know a whole lot about Dream 100. It's something that's way over my head. I have really no idea what it is. I talked to Dana about it. He usually tells me that I have no idea what I'm talking about, and I give him the thumbs up and smile and grin and do my nervous laugh that I usually do, and then Dana takes whatever I'm doing and goes and does it. So what's Dream 100? What's it mean? And just the whole everything about it.
So for context, the Dream 100 is kind of the angle that my company, the Derricks Group, is currently running as far as what our focus is. So we just launched a software for the Dream 100, which I'll explain here in a second. But Trent, first of all, don't believe what he's just said. He said he doesn't understand, he's not good at it. That's not true. He doesn't realize how good he is at it. What he's doing right now is Dream 100. What Tad is doing right now is Dream 100. So the Dream 100 essentially is creating connections with people that are value-driven and value-based that can advance both of you. So it's a value exchange with people. So from a practical standpoint, you two have Dream 100 each other, and the value you give each other is ever evolving. And what can happen from that, one thing that's awesome, is you can get referrals from each other, right?
Yep.
You can, very natural. So as a local insurance agent, it's very valuable to create a Dream 100. It doesn't have to be 100. In a small town, it's maybe 20. But you want to work with the mortgage brokers. You want to work with the real estate agents. You want to work with the teachers. Just like all the things you do. That's your Dream 100. And what you do is you create relationships with them. And then when the time comes that they hear someone needs insurance, call Trent. Hey, call Trent. The more relationships you build, right? Just like they came in with a business card with somebody. Hey, this guy needs help with internet marketing. Like, I didn't expect that, but because we have this relationship, that stuff just naturally happens.
Mm-hmm.
So from a local, standpoint, or small, kind of a smaller local level, Dream 100 is creating connections with people that can become referral sources, that can be assets for you in some way. They can help you somehow, and then taking it a little bit further, you can use the Dream 100 in anything. Okay, so let's say that you run a company, a large company, and you need good, solid contractors, right? You need good vendors. Let's say you have a restaurant, and you got to create a Dream 100.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't want to just call one vendor and then depend on them for the rest of your, you got to have a list, a network, a Rolodex, and that's what the Dream 100 is.
So I think it's interesting because who is your top person on your Dream 100?
Well, probably Russell Brunson.
Okay.
Who I mentioned earlier.
Yeah. So, Dana has a book. It is the Dream 100 book on it. They can buy that on your website.
Yeah, if they like it.
Yeah.
You definitely can.
And that's, I've read it. I've read most of Dana's 12 books. I'm in about 3 of them. Sometimes good, sometimes bad, but I'm in them.
How much royalty did you get for all that?
We get to use this camera. We got a tripod.
Yeah, I recognize that camera.
Yeah.
I thought I felt that went missing.
Yeah. So, no, I think Dana's story, I think what you have going here, and nobody knows. That's my favorite part about it, is the mystery. Like, when I talk, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go hang out with Dana. And people are like, what does Dana do? And I'm like, I don't know. And I'm like, he's just an entrepreneur. And they're like, well, what's that mean? And I'm like, honestly, I think you, to the core, that is what your business is built off of.
It took me a good solid probably 5 years to get people that were close to me to understand that I don't sell drugs for a living.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Thank you again, Dana, for having us today. I hope our listeners and our viewers learned something. You know, I think your story of struggle is very, very unique because you started at a very young age and then it made it, and then you chose a different path, and then you got to hit the struggle, and then you went full sprint or full send, as the kids would like to say, into everything else. So, thanks again. So, once again, Trent Nyhus, Farmers Insurance, the Nyhus Agency.
Tad Peterson with LakePlace.com, Brothers Realty. And again, thank you for the 3 people that probably got to the end of the video. I know not a lot of you get to the end of the video. You know, there's value in what you heard here today. Yeah, thank you very much for letting us talk to you.
So, Shop Talk with TnT. Make sure you like and subscribe. Tell a friend. Have a good one, guys.
Yeah.